What we know now is that there has been a drop in migratory flows toward OECD countries of roughly 25%. And we can say that in 2020, there will be 2 million less migrants than the trend in the previous years. But the aggregated figures do not tell you the entire story, because the impacts of the pandemic in migratory flows is very asymmetric. Look to the Mediterranean. There has been a drop in arrivals to Greece, significant one, less 25% in 2020 when compared to 2019. But if you look to Italy, there has been a sharp rise, 3 times more arrivals in Italy in 2020, mainly from Libya and from Tunisia. And if you now look to Spain, which is the country of highest destination of migrants in 2020, you will see that there are roughly 17,000 arrivals through the Mediterranean, the Western Mediterranean, but a sharp rise in arrivals through the Atlantic route to the Canary Islands, 23,000 in 2020. What does this tell us? This tells us that the pandemic has disrupted in the migratory flows due to the closure of the borders, due to the lockdowns, to the travel restrictions, but some routes have kept growing, and we do not know what's going to happen in the follow-up. I have two issues of concern. The first one is the fact that the closure of the borders have created a backlog of stranded migrants all over the world. If you only look to the Middle East and to North Africa, you have 1.2 million stranded migrants. What do I mean? Those are migrants who are going back to their countries of origin, who got blocked because of the travel restrictions and because of the closure of the borders, and nobody really knows what they will do next. What we see is a potential there of a growing of irregular trends, and we see the criminal networks that operate in the area very, very active. So likely the pressure from irregular migration will go on growing in the Mediterranean. The second element is the social economic impact of the pandemic. We know that only in Africa there will be a loss of 20 million jobs. 20 million jobs. The World Bank forecasts a drop in remittances to the countries of origin of 14%. So those are two elements that usually are driving elements of migratory flows. So we can anticipate that irrespective of the pandemic, there is strong social economic impact of migrants to start moving. My third point is about what kind of reshaping of migratory flows we are going to see. It's too soon to call. It's quite clear that Europe will go on needing low-skilled migrants for those kind of services where, by the way, the migrants have been on the front line during the pandemic, the groceries, the supermarkets, the agricultural sector. Well, they have gone working because of migrant work. But with remote working, with virtual working, there are new potentials of having people from other regions engaging in working towards European companies and European enterprises without having the need to come physically to the European territory. So the reshaping of migratory flows will be something that we will need to follow very closely. My fourth point is about there is one thing that did not change. If you want to regulate migration, you still need to guarantee close cooperation between countries of destination and countries of origin and countries of transit. That's why I believe that the Asylum and Migration Pact is so important. Let's be very clear on this point. It's a sensitive issue. The solidarity among European countries will depend to a large extent on the way the new system will work in terms of return, readmission, and reintegration of those who are not allowed to stay in the countries of origin. But be aware of one very crucial thing. Return can only work if it is strongly linked with reintegration. And therefore, I believe that it is absolutely necessary that the cooperation between the European Union and the African states will go on being essential to guarantee the management of migration. A cooperation that can only be dependent on the internal political agenda of the European Union. A cooperation that also needs to integrate the concerns and the policy priorities of the countries of origin, which means having more clear dialogue about legal pathways for migration, and at the same time have a strong collaboration in terms of reintegrating the migrants that are returned, whether through border procedures, whether through return sponsorships in the countries of origin. That's the way of consolidating mutual trust, build a strong relationship, and guaranteeing a joint approach to the regulation of migratory flows.